Right. And like you talked about communication, I think that's important for every relationship, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, conflicts are common in every relationship. There will be quarrels, no matter how compatible you are. So, what are some ways to handle conflicts in a healthy manner without, resorting to blaming each other?
Mhm. There's actually Dr. John Gottman. He's a preeminent marriage therapist. He has a wonderful book called The 7 Principles of a Successful Marriage. I recommend it to any couple that's in a long-term monogamous relationship because it has such helpful tools in it. He talks about a soft startup. And a soft startup has specific aspects of it that any couple can benefit from knowing in order to resolve conflict. But the first one is complain, don't blame. So instead of saying something like, you never do the dishes, say something like, I've noticed that I'm doing the dishes more often. Can you do the dishes? So you're not saying, you're not using a you statement, you're not blaming them, but you are pointing out the problem and asking your partner how they can fix the problem. The second one is use I statements, which I just mentioned, but there's a difference between saying, I or you are, you never do the dishes versus I feel upset that it seems like I am always doing the dishes. There's a different way of saying it. You are less likely to feel defensive if your partner comes to you and says, I feel like I seem to always doing the dishes versus, if someone came at me and said, you never do the dishes, I'll be like, I'll get defensive and I'll want to say, I did do the dishes on these days. And so using I statements instead of you statements, trying to stick to feelings, that's often where we need to connect with our partner is our ability to express our feelings. So saying, I feel upset versus, I think you blank. Another aspect of it is, being polite and appreciative. I understand things have been tough for you, but I would still really like this to be done. And notice that each time you're asking your partner to say something specific or do something specifically. You're not just, you're giving them what you would like and how you feel because they're not doing what you like. So those kinds of aspects are helpful. Also, I recommend what's called a fair fighting contract. If a couple is prone to blaming, bringing up past events, yelling, name calling, those should be boundaries that a couple decides, like, we will not name call. And if this happens, we do an automatic timeout of at least 30 minutes because it takes that long for your body to physically calm down. And then you can come back and try to talk about the situation without tempers being raised.
A very important part of something that you mentioned is that, whenever you are mad at your partner, it's important to watch how you talk to them. Like you said right now, that make I statements, not directly blame them. And I think this is something that you cultivate with time. It's not something that happens immediately, right? So can you suggest some mindset shifts? Say there's a person who resorts to blaming their partner whenever their feelings are hurt. So for someone like that, what are some steps they can take that whenever they are angry, they don't blame their partner, but they address the issue without hurting their partner?
Mm-hmm. So that's part of the reason with a fair fighting contract would be helpful. So a fair fighting contract would require both people to sit down and decide what are the unacceptable things in the way we fight. So blaming might be one of them. So when blaming happens, either the person who blamed or the person who is being blamed need to automatically initiate a timeout of at least 30 minutes, because that means you're mad and you're mad about something that's beyond the issue at hand. And that's another thing of the soft startup I talked about earlier is we should not store things up. And that's the problem. If something keeps coming up, it has not been resolved, or it is being stored up and then someone blows up. And we learn these relationship patterns often from how we were raised and what relationship models we were around. But that doesn't mean we need to keep doing that because it's not healthy. It's not kind. So if you or your partner is prone to blaming, as soon as that happens, automatic 30-minute timeout, up to a day. So 30 minutes to a day. It should not be longer than a day. That can get into what's called stonewalling, which is where you just ignore your partner for longer than a day. If it's longer than a day, it's extremely abusive and it's not okay. So a minimum of 30 minutes, a max to 24 hours. And then when you come back, you should be able to say, I'm sorry, I tried to blame you. I am mad about blank. It's, I would just like this problem to change. It shouldn't be about, it should be you against you and your partner against the problem, not you against your partner. You guys are supposed to work together. You're a team. And that's a way to sort of refocus it.
That's such an important point. And I think many people, not just in romantic relationships, whenever they are in some kind of conflict, they forget this point, and it always becomes a me versus you and not like an us versus the problem. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure it would be helpful for our viewers, because this is a mindset shift, but it happens if you keep practicing it, right?
Mm-hmm.